Good morning, everybody, on this Thanksgiving weekend. How is everybody doing today? So let's be honest. Are you fine? Or are you a CI teacher in late November telling everyone you're just a little tired while silently wondering if you can take a nap under your desk between classes? Yes, same. Today, we're diving into CI burnout. The real kind, not the I forgot my coffee on top of my car kind. Though, also that. And to help us dig into this emotional dumpster fire of teacher exhaustion, we've got two absolute powerhouses joining us. First up, Andy Dykema, the man who somehow teaches Spanish, AP Spanish, IB Spanish, and still plays the clarinet at a level that suggests he sleeps never. If anyone understands, I said yes to too many things, it's Andy. And then there's Meg Fandel Vernon, coming straight from Des Moines with more warmth, wisdom, and global learning energy than the rest of us have in an entire semester. She co-founded a teacher wellness retreat in Colombia, which honestly already makes her the healthiest person on this call. So buckle up, grab your lukewarm coffee, and let's talk about burnout. Why CI teachers hit the wall, what the warning signs sound like, and how to recover without quitting, crying, or moving to a yurt in the mountains. Let's get into it after these short messages. Ever feel like you're clinging to the edge of your teacher planner, just hoping today's lesson magically appears? Enter the CI Survival Kit, a monthly membership made for teachers who love comprehensible input, but also love not reinventing the wheel every Sunday night. Each month, you get fresh, ready to use lessons, time saving tools, and just enough structure to keep your teaching life together. No stress, no guilt, just monthly help from someone who gets it. Sign up at mm.us/survival and let the survival kit do the heavy lifting for once.
Welcome to Comprehend This, real talk for real language teachers. No drills, no dry theory, just honest stories, practical ideas, and a reminder you're not alone in the CI trenches. Let's dive in.
Hey, and welcome everybody. How is everybody doing this morning?
Doing great.
Good.
Okay, Andy, you want to tell us anything more about yourself other than what came up in the intro?
Well, no, just thanks for that. That was a good intro. I guess just a little context that I have been working with CI in a couple different settings, I guess, and one was all in on CI, and a couple were not all in on CI. So there was a little bit of I guess I've taught in kind of traditional ways. You mentioned AP, IB, so I've taught at kind of like the college level, high expectations kind of, high rigor, and also at beginning CI levels and stuff like that. So I have kind of a pretty broad experience, but I've tried to since learning about CI and the power of it, I've been trying to kind of integrate it as much as I can. And so that's it.
And how about you, Meg? Anything else you want us to know about yourself?
Well, I have to ditto. That was an awesome introduction. Thank you for that. And I'm glad to be here. This is the time of year where all of us start feeling like the high energy from the kids and the low energy from just like the routines need tightening up. And as you mentioned, I'm really big into wellness, and I think teacher wellness is extremely important right now. And comprehensible input, I've been doing comprehensible input for maybe 15 years plus. And it can feel more sometimes if you don't know how to balance it out. And, I'm happy to talk about that a little bit later, as well as we get into some of these questions. But there definitely are ways to balance out. And I think additionally, if you're anything like the teacherpreneurs that I tend to talk to, we demand a lot of ourselves, and sometimes we give too much, and that can be really detrimental to our own well-being and sometimes our own relationships, our own families. So I'm really thrilled to be here on this episode. Thank you, Scott.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you brought up a couple things that I was thinking about as well. When I first started teaching, back in 2001, a long time ago, I used to bring home tons of work on the weekends to do. And I would spend Saturday mornings working on that for many hours. And then that's time away from my family, as you said. You're taking away, and most jobs don't have to do that. When you leave your job, you're done for the day, and then you come back the next day and you start over. But teaching's never been like that. And I did that for the first couple of years, and then I started bringing home the stuff, but never taking it out to do. And I would just carry it back. So it was an exercise in weightlifting of all the papers back and forth. And then I started saying, you know what? I'm not doing it anymore. So I stopped bringing home stuff on the weekends. And I don't stay after school. Our contract is 10 minutes before bell, and then afterwards we can leave at the bell. My previous school was 20 minutes before, 20 minutes after, but so I leave at the bell at 3:45. When my bell rings, I am going out the door. I'm not staying. Now, I do come in the mornings, and I do get there about an hour and a half before school starts. And I do that for two reasons. One, I want to beat traffic because I live in a traffic area. So if I were to go at right time, it would take me a lot longer. I'd rather be sitting in my classroom working than sitting in traffic not being productive. But also, it's not time away from my family because my family's still sleeping. So after school is taking time away from family time and my dog time, who needs a lot of time. So I don't get, taking it afterwards is a big deal. So I think that wellness that you were talking about is so very important, and we do as CI teachers, we're on the whole time, the whole class period, we're on. Whereas traditional teachers teach a concept, and then the kids get to work on individual work right away, individual practice, and they get that little bit of off time, and then they make it up with having to grade all that work afterward. But so it is a real big concern, especially with CI teachers, all teachers really, but CI teachers. They say we have the highest rate of urinary tract infections because we're all holding our bathroom so much. We can only go to bathroom, before first period, lunch, prep, and then after school. 3 times a day is all you get. And those kinds of things we need to take into consideration if we want to be here for the long stay.
Yeah.
So thanks you for bringing that up. So, Andy, give us some experience you have with burnout that you've had.
Oh, a lot. And it, I think it, it comes from what you're saying, right? I mean, I had a fabulous intro to CI, but I was teaching at a Catholic school, a Jesuit high school in New Orleans, and it was very traditional in a lot of ways. And then I got to see a workshop at St. Martin's, also in the New Orleans area, but that was like fully in CI and stuff like that. And it was a little bit of an intimidating introduction because I saw some like really high energy like circles and story asking and stuff like that, and like it was an OWL, organic world language workshop, where we were all in circles and it was all in the target language and the teacher was leading it, and it felt like a lot of energy. And then I tried it, and then I kind of got I got into CI and kind of got into like figuring out what how the best practice is, how it's the best way to teach language, and how you can get to grammar, you can do all these, you can teach all the things that you need to in a different way that's not just study from the book or translate or whatever. And I was department head at the time, and ended up, I kind of tried to steer the ship, and tried to kind of be like, hey, let's be a CI department. But I didn't have any buy-in, and ended up spending a lot of time on a problem that was not mine to solve. And I guess, kind of that a little bit goes to the power of saying no. I said yes to solve a problem that nobody asked me to solve. And I spent a lot of time, saying this way we're teaching is not right. We should do this. Everybody look over here. And I was like just spending time, I don't know, trying to convince folks. And it ended up being like a crusade, And my therapist was like, okay, Quixote, this is a windmill, and you're not gonna get it. So I don't know. To me, like the roots of burnout is like, it's actually a good thing, because you want to do the right way. You want to be a good CI teacher. You want to get folks to see the light, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But if nobody wants to see it, you could end up like spinning your wheels and putting a lot of energy that doesn't go anywhere. And that's just really frustrating and demoralizing. So I don't know. I've learned that's where the roots, I think, come. Sometimes internal and sometimes like trying to change a big monolith that doesn't want to change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Meg?
Actually, as soon as you started talking, I was like, okay, I'm gonna jot down a couple ideas to kind of be able to bridge. So I thankfully have been very blessed in the sense that like I have worked in schools that are bought in. But I also do a lot of local leadership, and I see, especially now that our world is so connected online, I see a lot of like there's kind of like two or three schools of thought when it comes to language acquisition. And I know that that can weigh very, very heavy on people's hearts. And pulling, like right now, I work in a really large district. There's almost 50 world language teachers at my school. And so trying to have some cohesiveness, and we work with a fluent student population. You know, the students that go to my middle school now might be at a different middle school in the fall. They might go to a separate high school in the spring, all within DMPS. And so having that consistency is important for the stability of our students. And I work in an urban district, and I think that's a little bit where the burnout comes for people in a position of leadership. Additionally, I think sometimes it's just, there's no package when it comes to comprehensible input. There's no one package that you can purchase and that will work for every single person. And that is extremely frustrating. It has been very frustrating for me in the past as well. However, I don't think that even if it did exist, people would completely marry themselves to it. There are good programs out there. There are excellent scaffolds. There are excellent curriculums at a variety of levels. There are units galore, especially as a Spanish teacher. I feel like the materials have really, really there's just a plethora of beautiful materials out there, and the Spanish speaking world is exceptional in its beauty, in its diversity, in the offerings of content that we can give to our students. But what comprehensible input is in the root is teaching kids. It's pivoting every single day with what can they do and how can I adjust to fit the needs of my classrooms. And then I do kind of want to bring it back to that being a yes man, because I have found that I want to reach every single child at every moment in my classroom. Well, what does that end up being? Like a boatload of prep all the time when it's like, okay, how can I put a scaffold in for this group of kids? How can I mainstream teach this group of kids? I've got some high flyers that are obsessed with Duolingo. I've got 3 that went to immersion school in elementary. I have a handful of heritage learners, and I've got native speakers that like went to school in Guatemala until 5th grade, all in my classroom at the same time. And that is part of my burnout while we're revamping curriculum, because certain things are not working with our 6th grade through 12th grade curriculum at such a large district anymore. And that is most world language teachers' realities anymore. Is every single day it's a tiny pivot. And I think that bridges over to kind of zoom out into the burnout of the whole person. It zooms out into arguments about dinner because you can't handle one more question, and then you come home and like 3 people are looking at you like, hey, what's for dinner? And it's like, I can't do any more decisions today. And that's just one example, of I think a pretty standard thing that we're all dealing with as caretakers, as teachers, as people that want to make the world a little bit better place with our careers, and that can be a very heavy load.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you, I've been writing down tons of notes as you've been talking about things that I wanted to say as well. Because you guys, first of all, the yes thing. That's a big thing that a lot of us teachers, we are people pleasers by nature. And so we say yes to things because it's for the kids. But there's got to be a time. I mean, when I think about it, like our school, my middle school, when I taught at middle school, I've done high school and middle school. I'm back in high school right now, and when I did middle school, we had what, two events that we had to cover over the year, the after school events that we had to supervise. Here at my high school now, I got to do 12 hours. So it depends on what the event is and how many. So 12 hours. And it's unpaid time. And sometimes if you sign up for one event, it's an extra 4 hours. So I get to school at 6 a.m. School starts at 8:30 in the morning. Then it ends at 4. And then I've got to be at the event at 5 until 8 or 9 p.m. at night. That's a heck of a long day, and the end of the day is not, you're not getting paid for that time. And then kids want you to attend their own, oh, profe, come to my game, I'm in a game, or come to my play, I want to do the play. All these kinds of things that are going on, and you want to be there for them. At the same time, you've got to be there for your family. And what other job demands you pretty much like 20 hours out of 24 that they need you to
Right.
be there? If you go to every game and every play, you're never going to be home at all to spend with your family. We always want to say yes because it's for the kids, and that there's no other job that's like that requires that much investment from you and out of your personal time. And they're like, oh, come to the marching band competition on Saturday. I'm like, when do you want me to have a day off and to get away from school for 5 minutes?
Can I add on to that a little bit?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt, Scott.
No, no,
Finish
no.
your thought.
Go ahead.
I think another aspect of this is the rampant changes that education as a system has been through in the past 10, 20 years. There are so many responsibilities that we're so much better at so many things that it has created a system where we're overloading the boots on the ground, which I like to call, the teachers and our sports staff kind of the boots on the ground. But I have more IEPs and 504s than ever. This is a good thing that we're recognizing needs and we're giving students support. This is a good thing. But we have less money than ever, which means we're short staffed. So then we have to overextend. Our state had last year put into law a solution for chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is a huge thing sweeping our nation. And so we have to be on top of attendance and make attendance calls every single week. Like, these are things that seemingly are like good solutions, but at the end of the day, chip away 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time. And there's not been radical support for us as a career. And I think additionally, we pay for a lot of our own professional development, and we do a lot of our own professional development on our own time. And that does not go unnoticed amongst our community. Woo, I got confetti. That's great. Woo, confetti bomb. That was so fun. But it's my husband's an actuary. I know for a fact he didn't pay for a single one of those exams, and he got paid study time off.
Yeah.
Different career, different sector. I realize corporate America works very differently than education, and I would not want corporate America running education. But corporate America pays for corporate America to stay ahead, and I don't see that rampantly happening. I know that it does. I know that there are programs out there, especially with running the Experiencia Colombia program. Like, teachers are getting funding through things like grants for teachers, fund for teachers, things like that. But we're going out and seeking those out. They're not readily available to us systematically. So there's just a lot of factors. And I guess instead of just piling on the list of reasons we're burning out, I think we need to take a step back and say, what is it that I can do that's effective with my time and my energy, and what can I let go? And I stopped grading as many papers.
Absolutely.
And dare I say, I feel like that tiniest little bit of nervousness in my chest to say this out loud, but here, I did it. And guess what? Almost no one has complained in the past 7 years.
Well,
I grade a handful of things when I can. I have a rolling grade book, and if I get 10 grades in for first hour today, great. The next 10 come tomorrow, cool. Second hour happens on Wednesday. And I've just started rolling things out in smaller chunks because it wasn't working for me. I was doing the weightlifting. My backpack took a field trip to my house and didn't see anything, but the inside of the backpack came home, and it's like, well, that's not what I'm doing anymore. But I just started making different choices. I'm not grading papers, but I'm just not grading as much. And as a
well,
middle school exploratory Spanish teacher, I think that's just fine.
For sure.
absolutely. And I was going to say, when you talk about the grading there, a couple things you brought up and gave me some more points to talk about. Um, Grading doesn't equal acquisition
Amen.
because we do
100%.
Where's my
not.
confetti?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, put the confetti back. Yeah, 100%.
Here, I have some. I
Because
have some.
parents get kids
I
to.
have palm tree confetti.
Because parents get their kids to acquire a language without any grading whatsoever. And then when we look at it, you get those community programs. I love these things. I used to do them a lot as a kid. You get the community education brochure in the mail about learning how to do art or taking another language or learning how carpentry. These little classes that you take at the community, and there's no grading in there, but you still learn. So grading does
It's
not
enjoyable.
equal learning.
That's right.
It's just the evidence of that learning, and we don't have to take that evidence every 5 minutes. We're constantly evaluating as we go through the classroom, but we don't need to have paper and pencil evidence every 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I'm big on grading. I mean, I think it's important, just not for the acquisition, but to see where my kids are compared to where I want them to be so that I have the information to do my job. That's what grading is for me. Couple of things that you were talking about, the education thing. Every other profession that requires continuing education pays for that education. Not just in paying for the actual classes, but in compensation that you get as a person. Doctors, nurses, lawyers, they all have continuing education requirements, just like teachers, but it shows in their compensation where it doesn't show in our compensation at
Right.
all. Our compensation stays. I mean, right now we're in my school district, we are without a contract. We're working without a contract. We're on the verge of a strike. So, this is what's
Where are you at
happening
right now, Scott?
in Sacramento.
Okay.
So we're at the impasse stage. We're bringing in a mediator to come in and look at it because what the school wants to give and what we want to give are not anywhere, not even close. And it's not just about the money. You just want to be valued for what we do, and we can't afford to live anymore. We're having teachers leave to neighboring districts because the compensation is not there, and we can't afford to live. We had one teacher who left right before Thanksgiving. She left. She got permission to get out of her contract because, and this is so disheartening, her daughter came back from wherever she was living. She came back because she got sick, and I don't know what the sickness was, but she didn't have insurance at this point because she came back home, and to add her to her insurance, to her mom and her dad's insurance, was an extra $1,000 a month for
Oh
them
my
to
gosh.
add her daughter. But she needed to do that because her daughter needed to go to the doctor and go to the hospital and do these kinds of things. And she goes, I can't afford it at my current salary. I cannot afford $1,000 out of
Yep.
my salary. So she had to leave to a different school district where her salary was slightly less, but they paid more of the insurance. So she didn't have that big chunk of change coming out. And it's hard to make, she goes, my heart is here at this district with this school, but I had to make the hard choice for my family, and that we shouldn't have to make those kinds of choices.
I
And that's
agree.
really tough. That's really tough with education. I mean, because I feel like as you know, as you were speaking, like the demands keep getting bigger. If you're good at something, you're going to be asked to do something else. You want to say yes. and at the same time, it's like, I mean, I say they, there's a push from above to, do more with less and to reach every kid, but it's the teacher's job to reach this kid now, and just things keep added and added and added, and um, yeah, and we want to say yes because we are in education for the right reasons, because we want to help the kids, and like when they asked me to teach civics to a population of English language learners, which I love the idea of, and they were like, because at my last school I was kind of a hybrid teacher. I taught IB Spanish and I taught English language learners. I taught English and was in class support for that. And then they needed someone to do a civics class like for that group. So they were like, do it in Spanish or do it bilingual or something like that. And it sounded great. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But then I didn't, as I said yes, I didn't make any like provision to like make that give myself any support to make it work for myself. And I burned out really fast. And I was like, this was a terrible idea. And they were like, but I thought you wanted to do it. I'm like, well, yes, but yes, but no.
Yeah.
And something came up on my Instagram feed yesterday. It was Trevor Noah talking about ADHD and stuff like that. And his thing was, he was like, you should start with no. He's like, if somebody asks you to do something, start with no. And he's like, because then you don't overcommit yourself and wind up disappointing people and shame spiraling and whatever. He's like, start with a no, and then if there's a compelling reason to do the yes, go with the yes. So that was a helpful kind of reframe for me as we're thinking about like boundaries, because that's really what all this is about, is like your professional boundaries and your work boundaries and your personal boundaries. You can separate those lives and still be a good teacher, but that historically was not the expectation. Like the expectation was, you're going to be this nurturing figure. You're going to like attend to all of the students' needs all of the time, and it's a lot. You can't do it all.
No, absolutely. And to those points that you were talking about, I had a really good principal many years ago, and he said his job as a principal was to remove everything off teachers' plates as much as possible so they could just teach. And I thought, he goes, that's what my job was. And that is
100%.
the best
Wow.
definition of what a principal should be doing.
Yeah.
Taking as much off the teacher's plate so they can actually focus on what they're supposed to be doing. We're not administrators. We're not bean counters. We're not all these other little things, or budget managers trying to figure out how to use our own money to supply our classroom with what the classroom needs to be able to do that. That should be all coming from other people who are better at it than we are. So I really appreciated when he said that. And I'll talk about my 2 times when I have been very burnt out, and then my overall arching why I get burnt out. When I was in middle school, teaching at middle school, especially the first couple of years we were starting the program, and I was teaching the same class every day. So it was level 1. We taught 6 out of 7 periods. So I was teaching 6 classes of level 1 every single day. And I didn't remember, did I cover this already? Did I talk about this? The kids are like, what are you, senile? But they only have 1 time with me, and I have 6 times I'm doing this, and I can't remember anything. And I would write everything down on sticky notes and I was just getting burnt out doing the same thing over and over. So I advocate that you change what you teach. You don't always be a level 1 teacher or a level 2 teacher or a level 3 teacher or an AP teacher, that you rotate it out every few years. Yes, you want to get there a couple of years so you can master it a little bit, but then change it up, because you can always learn new skills that can apply to everything. And I think that's really important. At a middle school, it's much more difficult. We did have level 1, 2, and 3 at my middle school. So eventually, as we added more classes, I became 2 and 3, the 2 and 3 teacher. But again, it was the same thing all the time. And then I begged my last couple of years, they're like, can I have a 1 again so I can at least feel what that's like again? Because 1 is one of my favorite ones to teach because, and this is going to sound a little egotistical, but at the end of the year, everything that they learned was because of me. It wasn't like at level 2, I'm like, how much of it was me and how much of it was their level 1 teacher, or a level 3 teacher being level 3, how much of it was their level 1 and their level 2 teacher, and how much of it was me. So I just like to be able to see the growth and know that what I'm doing is working. So it's not as egotistical. It's just, but in level 2 and level 3, I didn't know exactly how much of what they learned was because of what I did in the classroom, so I could measure my own proficiency in teaching them.
Those
Now back in
barometer
high
students are really
school,
cool. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really cool.
in high school, my problem is I I'm in a more rural, no, more urban district, not suburban. So the apathy. I have too many kids who they have way too much apathy. They don't care to be in any class, let alone Spanish. And Spanish just makes it worse than everything else because they defaulted into Spanish because at our school we have Spanish, Russian, or Mandarin, and they know if they can't hack it in Spanish, there's no other choice because they can, if they can't hack Spanish, which is of the three the easier one, they're not going to hack it in Russian or Mandarin with a whole nother alphabet, whole nother way of writing, a whole different way. They're not going to be able to do those kinds of things. So they default into Spanish and they don't want to be there. So that apathy, having to combat that and have to motivate them every single day to do the smallest of things. Like I'll have a kid just ask her a question like, do you have siblings? And I'll have kids who refuse. I don't want to answer that. And it's not because they don't want to give out personal information, because I don't care what the answer is. It doesn't have to be true. I just need you to speak a sentence. And I have the scaffolding on the board, and they're like, no, I'm not doing that. I have kids, I've never had that before. Even when I taught high school before, I didn't have the apathy. And I don't know if the apathy is the area that I'm teaching or is it post COVID, because I don't know. Because when I taught pre-COVID, I taught high school pre-COVID, and so I can't tell you what if it's just the generation or the area or what. But that's my big thing right now that I deal with is the apathy. They don't want to participate and do the work. And then my big overarching, and I don't know how this speaks, I find a lot of teachers are introverts, and I am a 150% introvert. I use every ounce of extrovertedness, which is 0, in my classroom. And when I get home, I am just exhausted for having to put on
Yeah.
this facade that's not me. I'm very introverted. I rather be home with my family and my dog and watching TV than be out partying or engaging in social. I mean, when they say, oh, there's a Christmas party and everybody's expected to be there, my anxiety goes
Hmm.
way up because I'm just not good in those situations. So for me, being that introvert in an extroverted type of career is really exhausting. So I get a lot of burnout from that. Not from the actual job, just having to put myself out there and communicate with parents and kids and coworkers and administration and all of those things, and putting on my polite hat instead of saying, you know what, this could have been an email. Why are you wasting my time for a meeting on this? Or, really, you're wasting my time with that little bit of a topic, because that's what I really want to say, because I am a very direct kind of person. I don't like sugarcoating. Just tell me what it is. Um, and playing all those games, the politics, I just don't play politics well.
Yeah, the political correctness there's an extremely high standard. My administrator was talking about this um, a 6 or 7 weeks ago, and we had been through a really tough situation with some upper leadership in our district, and we had a meeting the next day. And one of the takeaways that she said, I want you to zoom out real far. When you zoom out really far, what's happened today and yesterday is a blip. And the more and more you zoom out, it will give you a better perspective. But the catch side is when you work in education, people hold you to a high standard all the time. You are not just a teacher at school. You're a teacher at the movies, you're a teacher at the grocery store, you're a teacher everywhere. And people have a really, really hard time separating the identity of our careers with the moral high political correctness that we're supposed to hold all the time. And so, especially, you know, I feel like the older I get, the more life experience I have, the better perspective I have, the more responsibilities I have. Like, I am finding myself more comfortably outspoken about what I believe in, but people can't separate Meg Vernon from Mrs. Vernon at school. And so it really becomes a dangerous topic, when we feel strongly about things, and especially in education, we're constantly scratching and fighting tooth and nail for our own professional dignity, for our students, for kids to eat food at school, all the layers of things. And it becomes really, it can weigh very heavy on us as people, because we're expected to, like you said, have this kind of facade. And I think a lot of us do it so well, sometimes we don't even realize that, I've taken on this role. It's kind of you step through the doors and it's like, okay, here I am, this type of a person in school. And to bring it back to the comprehensible input, I think that is another. I'm just so thankful that I've been through many years with so many nurturing communities, like especially the online comprehensible input acquisition driven community has raised me so well. I still use your writing rubric, Scott, from Comprehensible Iowa, maybe a decade ago. It's just,
Yep.
all those little things that are tools that we've been trained to do because we care about each other and we care about doing the next thing. It's helped me get to a place in my career where I do feel like I can make some decisions, or I don't feel like I have to copy someone to learn. Like, when I first really started getting into comprehensible input, I wanted to be Elena Filipescu. I was like, this woman is unbelievable. I cannot believe the things that she is doing in her classroom, and at that time, being a younger CI teacher, I didn't realize all of the factors that went into raising her as a teacher. And I was a novice, jumping in for a few times, a few like techniques, and I'd try them a few times, and then I would look and be like, why does her YouTube classroom not look like my classroom? But because of all those little experiences, I have been able to take things that all these teachers are doing around the world and make them mine. I can do my own personality, and so if you are a little sarcastic and you love Alina, take Alina's technique and make it yours, because it's going to land when it comes from you. And I think that is something that has really helped me, because for a solid decade there in my teaching career, every February was like, can I work at Lowe's and get like a home improvement discount as a manager? Because it would definitely be easier. And I was having that conversation. I probably had that conversation 50% of my career. Like, do I want to continue this again next year? And it can be a little self-sabotaging when you're like, well, I'm good at it, or when I'm not teaching, how much am I going to miss it? Or, I have 2 degrees and countless professional development hours in. Why would I throw that away? All these things that go into our decisions. But I mean, honestly, there are times when I'm like, when teachers are miserable and they are reaching burnout, I'm like, it's just a year. Like, if you do decide not to teach next year, like, it's just a year. Is that the worst case? I wouldn't advocate that people leave teaching, but like, if you are not well, if the students in your classroom are not having a beneficial experience because you're not handling things well, and like, no shame, no shame. Zoom out. Zoom
Yep.
out. See if you can take yourself out of that teacher identity for a minute, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
We are married to our teacher personalities a lot.
And I'm going to go right on to that. And then this is a great segue for Andy that he wanted to talk about too in a moment. That you said we're on 24/7. We are that teacher. And when I worked at the middle school, I am less than a mile away from the middle school that I taught at. which was really hard because I've always lived 20 to 30 minutes away from work, which I loved because I wouldn't have to worry about seeing the kids at Target, at the movies, at the doctor's office. But
Right.
here, I mean, I didn't even think about it. The first time I had Halloween came and my kids were knocking at my door. Now they know where I live. And it's like, so I started to pay kids to hand out candy so it
Don't you
wouldn't
know
be
I'm an
me.
introvert, kids?
Yeah. So it's like I had kids on Friday night knock on my door saying, Profe, we got a skit for you. I'm like, great, it's Friday night. Show me on Monday morning. I don't want to see you on the weekends. I have a doorbell cam, and I had kids who would dance out in front of my doorbell cam. And I had a kid who left sugar-free pudding in my mailbox in the jar. He goes, I'm thinking about you, Profe. I know you're diabetic and you can't have sugar, so here's this. And then he put a little note, can we camp out in your backyard this weekend? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're on. And it was, you love the idea that the kids like you enough to feel comfortable with that, but you also want to have your own time and away from work.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the bigger thing, you talk about online social media. There are so many things that I want to like or comment on, but I'm hesitant to because if a kid sees it or if a parent sees it, are they going to make a judgment? You hear about teachers being fired for, making this comment or that comment. So, I stay away from all politics. Even go, oh, I really agree with that. Oh, I'm not saying a word. I'm not liking it. I'm not doing nothing with that because I don't want people to perceive me, because that teacher personality. And we're supposed to be neutral. We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We're not anything. We are right in the middle, and we can't give any kind of indication in what way that we lead. And so I'm always conscious. I'm like, oh, that is so funny, but so inappropriate. So I don't want to,
Yeah.
like that because I don't want a parent say, look what this teacher, I don't want this teacher teaching my child because this is the kind of humor that they
Right.
appreciate, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I am completely with you there that we have to, there's very few jobs where you are always on. And you always got to
Mm-hmm.
think about how you are conducting yourself because you never know who's going to see or who's recording or what's going to show up on social media. You never know. And so we're always so very, very cautious. Like some days I forgot to take out my garbage and I got to take it out at 5 in the morning, and I just want to wear my pajamas and just walk out there in my slippers. But I'm like, okay, I'm in the neighborhood where I work. That's not appropriate. I need to be completely, I need to shower, I need to dress, I need to put on my, my Sunday clothes just to take out the garbage where everybody else is
Yeah.
in their robe and, slippers out there taking out their garbage at 5 in the morning. So it is a
Yeah.
lot
The
of pressure
layers
with
of
that.
pressure is real.
Yeah,
Yep.
they really are. Yeah.
And Meg kind of alluded to it, and Andy wanted to talk about it earlier about authenticity. And you brought it up with
Mm.
wanting to be Alina Filipescu. All of us want to be Alina Filipescu when we grow up. I mean, she is
I know.
absolutely, positively amazing in every which way.
Yep.
And Andy wanted to talk a little bit about that. And I think that also leads to burnout, that we try to be people who are not. And
Yeah.
instead of taking what's good about them and adding it to what's good about us and becoming a us first and using the techniques and strategies that we've learned from other people instead of trying to be somebody different can also be exhausting. So
Yeah.
Andy, you're on.
Yeah, I wanted to be Annabelle Allen, La
Oh,
Maestra Loca, because that was kind of my first. She was she was at St. Martin's, which hosted the very first comprehensible workshop that I ever attended. Delta, that dog, he's on something today. Anyway, but she was at that, and I got to know her, and I started following her stuff, and learned a lot about CI from Annabelle. And Delta, he picked the worst time. But I learned about playing Mafia in class and classroom jobs, and she had this little unicorn that would pee on people, and she would talk about the unicorn pee, and then for her brain breaks she would do rock paper scissors, and I don't know. I mean, it's her energy is dynamic and it's palpable, and she's this huge extrovert, right? And then uh, a position opened up at St. Martin's, a different position, not hers, but I was going to inherit a lot of her students. So she was also doing like a language workshop at IFLT, which is a fabulous conference. And so I purposely waited until the very end to go to hers, but because I had this kind of building anxiety, like I can't be her. How on earth am I going to be her? What am I going to do? And it was and I felt a huge pressure because I was going to inherit a lot of her students, and so I knew from the get I was going to have a but Maestra used to do this, or why can't we do what Maestra does, or why can't you be like Maestra? And at the very end of the conference, she looked at me and she was like, Andy, you don't have to do this. She's like, you, if you don't want to do the like roller coaster brain break where all the kids are sitting on the floor and going like a la derecha, a la izquierda, arriba, abajo, you don't have to do that. She's like, your students next year don't need me, they need you, and they need an authentic so that was it was a real moment to me that I hadn't realized that I was putting that much pressure on myself. But the upshot of it is you do if you don't want to do the mafia brain break, don't. There's no harm done. If you hate story asking, there's tons of other ways to provide comprehensible input. If you want to if you don't like movie talk, don't. But figure out what works for you, because best practice is sustainable and authentic, and if you're trying to put on a show and trying to be someone who you're not for 90 minutes 4 times a day, you're going to burn out real fast. And I had a couple moments where I was like, I'm trying to do too much, and I was like, this is not working. So what worked for me in that moment was going back to Somos. I don't know if you were talking about programs and stuff a little bit earlier, Meg. And so, if there's anyone who's kind of new to CI and wants to get their feet wet in terms of like a really structured way, I recommend the Somos as like a good scaffold, because it's very scripted. It's got units, and you can just like pick a couple of units. And I followed it pretty closely for a while, and then was like, okay, I got it from here, and kind of started branching out and doing my other stuff. So, or just whatever, not dogmatically following it anymore. So anyway, thanks for
I
that.
think that's a really good tip as well. Like Martina has created with her team, they have created not only a solid, like a pedagogically solid curriculum, but I found that there is actually teacher training embedded, because you read the instructions and you read the lesson plans, and then the materials are so meticulously laid out for you that it's like once you've done 4 units, you're like, oh, that's what movie talk is.
100%.
I got this, and you can start bridging into. So I will double down on that. Like if you are a new to acquisition driven instruction teacher, even if if you have a very low budget, like my school, cero, nada for like materials, and we have to get them approved like 18 months in advance, and it's just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna buy this by myself on Teacher Pay Teachers. But that is a good solid start. They're just, the teacher training in there is really good, and a lot of those beginning units, like you can add on your own life experiences. You can bring in so many different aspects through, and not just Somos, like all the way into acquisition driven instruction, that like the authenticity of you in the classroom and me teaching about things that I learned, doing my master's degree in Spain or spending my summers in Colombia now, is going to be way different than my coworker who's got a master's in history from the Dominican. He does completely different things. He's got his students like reciting poetry and creating carnaval outfits, and he's got a huge Latino population at his school, and they do those types of things, and that's because it comes from him, his own creativity. And my experiences and what I get enthused about is different, and those are all things we got to honor them. And not only, like, we need those leaders, but the imposter syndrome to say like, oh, I'm not very good at that. Like when you said story asking or like PQA, I dislike the student interview thing, like special person, and I want to like it so badly, but just something doesn't click when I'm standing in front of kids trying to personalize questions while simultaneously keeping the other 28 like somewhat engaged, it's like it's too much for me. I just am not good at it enough, or I don't like it enough to do that. So guess what? I don't do special person interviews ever. And I have attended not once, not twice, not thrice, but many times Bryce Hedstrom's special person like workshops where it's like, okay, finally I'm going to do this. But I'm not Bryce. I can never be that chill. The amount of empathy that just bubbles around him when he walks into a room, um, his he has just a different aura than I do, and I've never been able to do it like him. And I got to find a way to do it on my own if I want to do it. You know, what's not working needs to change. Um, yeah, Bryce, I know
Yeah.
he's so good.
And you know something that you said too. Back when I started, there was the only CI. I wouldn't even call it that back then. Was TPRS. That's all you had. So it was story
Hmm.
asking, story asking, story asking. And so I'm so thankful that we have all this variety of stuff that
Yeah.
we have that you can do. There's picture talk, there's movie talk, there's clip chat, there's all these other things that you can do to provide comprehensible input. You don't have to just do the story asking. And something that you mentioned too, PQA. First of all, I am so anti jargon. Can we just call things what they actually are? Because anything that
Hmm.
you have to explain what it means before you actually explain how to do it, that's a problem for me. It adds like an extra barrier. So PQA,
Yeah.
personalized questions and answers, nobody knows what that is just by you saying, oh, I know exactly what that is. Nobody knows. It's just a conversation. But it took me so many years to figure that out. And like you, that PQA stage, when it was just TPRS and that was an important stage, I skipped it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't feel comfortable do it. There's my introvert part. I'm not a conversationalist. So I skipped it completely. Plus, in every workshop I had ever attended, nobody ever demoed that. They went straight into the
Hmm.
story asking. So they skipped that part, which was like an important step of the process, but nobody ever demoed it. So I never saw it actually being done until I read from Ben Slavik's book PQA in a Wink, and I go, oh, this is just small talk. It's conversation. It's how you handle it at a party. I'm like, oh, I can do that. And so I did.
Mm.
I don't do as extensive as a special person interview because that never worked well. Because you can do things, and if it doesn't mesh with your personality, if you don't believe in it, the kids aren't going to believe in it. I can make kids
100%.
believe in a lot of stuff as long as I believe in it. Like I can get kids to sing, and kids, teachers like, that's a really hard native speaker song. How are you getting your kids to sing that song? I'm like, because I'm singing it. I'm out there, and I
Yeah.
can get them to do it because I'm into it too. And so that makes a big thing. So if you're not into something, if you're seeing a technique that everybody says is fabulous, like special person interviews by Bryce Hedstrom, if it's not you, then you can't fake it because the kids will see that you fake it, and it's not gonna work for you in your classroom. So find the things that do work in your classroom, mesh that with your personality, and you'll have success. I now do PQA. I don't call it that. I call it conversations because that's what it is. Circling. Oh my gosh, I have to explain what circling is because circling to me is, remember those little spirograph that little design thing tool in the 70s? You put your little
Yeah.
pen in
Yes.
there, and that's what I'm thinking circling is. It's just scaffolded differentiated questioning. The moment you say that, now you don't have to explain what it is because every teacher knows what scaffolding is and what differentiation is and
Hmm.
questioning is. You don't have to come up with a whole new triangling. Okay, it's a great technique, but it's really just interviewing the actors, the personalities in the story, interviewing them. Can we not just say that instead of having to say triangling? Let's
Character
explain what
interviews. Yeah.
triangling is first, and then let's talk about how to do it. We can take that intermittent step out in there. So I'm with you there that a lot of those techniques, you've got to find what works in your classroom. Because if you're constantly trying to be somebody else or trying to implement the next great strategy that doesn't mesh with your personality, you are going to burn out, and you're going to burn out quick.
And to add on to that, if you're in a position right now listening and you're like, I am currently experiencing burnout, how do I get out of this? Because I don't want to quit my job, I don't want to quit my career. I would suggest, like, one, if you are active on social media, start following the teachers that other teachers are following and unfollow the ones that don't mesh with you. I listened to Diana Castro twice give presentations, and everything that came out of her mouth, I was like, I'm doing that tomorrow. I'm trying this tomorrow. A lot of her delivery and her heart spoke so much to the types of things that I wanted to see in my classroom. She does a lot of positive regard, and she said, you can make a pact right now with yourself that everything that comes out of your mouth from now forever in the classroom is stated positively. Instead of don't yell, ask for a volume 1. Instead of okay, it's not time to leave, say we have 2 minutes to pick up. Just that mind shift change was really saving for me. And Scott, to bring it back to the apathy, man, the post-COVID stuff was brutal. That was
It really
hands
is.
down way harder. Coming back to school, my school district was out for almost a year and a half consistently. We were like out for, I don't know, March to summer. Then the kids came back somewhat hybrid. Then they were 100% online. Then they were back. Then they were not. And then it was Monday, Tuesday, nobody on Wednesday. It was all this like wonky inconsistency, which, whatever. But like the year after that, the apathy was so high. And so I literally, like, I remember feeling the inside of my ears like no one's talking. My ears are working so hard to hear. Like my head hurts, my heart hurts. It was so hard. I'm still at that urban district, but there are the diversity of needs at urban districts can be very challenging.
For
And
sure.
I've been able to adjust through finding people that I resonate with. I'll throw out another name. Ben Tinsley is a phenomenal online presence. And we started doing map talks, and I was like, I love maps. Me personally, Google Maps is hands down my number one used app on my phone. He showed me map talks, I don't know, 4 years ago or so at Kansas World Language Association. And I was like, I love maps. Let's grab that peg man and drop him around. And so we started doing map talks, and it was so fun. There's 100 different ways to do it. And he's got a couple really good examples online. But okay, so before I go too far down, that's my first suggestion. Find people you resonate with, and it doesn't have to be online. There are small conferences all around the country now that you can attend, and I strongly suggest that if you are burning out, go in person to these conferences. The online conferences are phenomenal. They're great prices. They bring in huge amount of talent. It's definitely worth your money. And there's nothing like having lunch next to someone and spending the day learning with them and fostering a relationship in person that you can then later depend on, and learn from and find support in. I think this is true, but I know it's definitely true for the conferences that I'm involved with. Like, attendance is low. In-person attendance at conferences are low. Our state conferences are dying. They used to be our only in-person opportunities, and everything has changed so much in a decade that it's like the online access is amazing. And I also think at least every couple of years, try to get in person with people. And then I tangented for long enough to forget what my other idea was. Connection. Just get connected. Get
Yeah.
connected with people.
And that was a great segue, because that's what I was going to ask next. What would you suggest for people who are experiencing burnout that they can do to try to combat that? So that was a great thing, to find people that you connect with. And
Mhm.
again, just like different techniques, just because they happen to be an amazing person, amazing guru, their strategies may not mesh with your personality. So that's okay. Find somebody else. There's somebody out there for everybody. There's Bryce, who's a very calm person compared to Blaine Ray, who's not. He's a very extroverted. La Maestra Loca is very extroverted. There's Hayun Lu, who teaches Mandarin, and she's a very calm personality as well. You don't have to be that extreme, always on type of personality. So find the people, and there are people from all over the world that you can find and listen to on there, and learn from them and their personalities, and find the ones that mesh with you. That will really, really help. What's your suggestion, Andy?
Well, I think the big one is authenticity, and like Meg was
Huge.
saying, right? Curate what's coming into your space, and if there's someone's ideas who you just totally recoil at, and even if they're one of the like gurus, or like if even if they're widely regarded, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Don't try to force it. Um, and then I think that there's plenty strategies. Like I think even on Martina Bex's blog, I think she's got crockpot meals, like freezer meals recipes, like buried in somewhere under the Somos curriculum. So it's not, self-care is huge and important, and I think it's part of it's got to be part of the conversation. And I think it wasn't prioritized in the same way before, but I think dealing with post-COVID kids in the passenger mode, or just so many pressures and so many things that are going to us. I think you just have to be yourself and be authentic and do what works for you. And if it sucks, change it. And if it comes to a situation where you might need to leave your school, maybe you need to leave your school. And if I don't know. I think I remember hearing a long time ago about find the school that makes you the least crazy and stay there as long as you can. And it's I
Yeah.
guess that's a barometer that still works. So I think we are fortunate that we have options, especially as like Spanish teachers. There are lots of positions available, and therefore you can find your own. Um, the best fit school, but also like where you are, try to water the grass that's planted, and take good care of it.
That's a good thing. I like that. Take good care of the grass that you planted. That's an awesome
Mhm.
quote there. And I'm just going to say, and I'm not this, this is going to come out really bad, and I apologize. I am not that person who goes to workshops, and when the presenter starts, goes, take 3 deep breaths before we start. Let's all set that kind of stuff. That is not me. It's just not
Yeah.
me. That and the, oh, let's do some icebreakers. That right there. Let's my hair on the back of my neck go straight up icebreakers, and let's take a moment to center ourselves, and let's take 5 deep breaths. That is just not me, but
Hmm.
I know it works for some people. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's just not for me. But what I think is important, and the ultimate takeaway, is that you need to take care of yourself first. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're no good to anybody, your family, your friends, or your students. So you have to take care of yourself, and whatever that looks like for you, that for me is not breathing in and out. That just doesn't do anything for me. I
Hmm.
breathe in and out every day. That's why I'm alive. I don't need to do it extra. It doesn't do anything for
Hmm.
me. But going to the movies, I like going to the movies and watching a good movie, or watching a good TV program, or spending time with my family or my dog. That kind of stuff centers me. Whatever it is for you, you need to take care of yourself first, because you're not good for anybody if you aren't well yourself, and you need to set boundaries. So, like Andy
Yep.
said, say no first. Also, tell your students, you know what? I'd love to come to your game, or I'd love to watch you in the musical, or I'd love to come to your concert, but I need to spend time with my family, and that's important for me. And I wish you all the best. I know you're going to be amazing, but you need to set some of those boundaries and say no to some of these things, because you can't be something to everyone. If you're trying to be something to everyone, you're no one, you're nothing to everyone. So you've got to find
Mm-hmm.
that way. And so find what works for you. Set your boundaries. Don't spend hours at school after the bell rings. No one's benefiting from that. Your kids benefit for you to be present while you're in class from bell to bell. Anything that you do after the bell is over isn't probably as helpful to students as you might think it is. So
Mm-hmm.
don't spend all
That
those
can be
hours.
really tough.
Yeah, it can be. When that we used to have tell us one teacher that I worked with, she was amazing. But on Friday nights, she'd be there till like 8 o'clock at night getting ready for the next week. And I'm like, what the hell? Why are you being school ended at 2:30? Why do
Mm.
you
Yeah.
need another 6 hours at school? A
A
whole
whole
nother school
day.
day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like she was a brand new teacher. She had been teaching for 10 or 15 years. So, I understand with brand new teachers, you get stressed. You're like, I got to do all this stuff. I got to make sure it's perfect for the next time. But what are you doing that needs an extra 6 hours on a Friday to prepare for the next week? And is it really benefiting the students? Or is it something else that's going on that you're working on? You need to get away from the school. So a lot of us, we'd have this little accountability group. We're like texting each other. Okay, are you in the parking lot yet? Everybody, we need to go. It's time to go. And my old principal at my middle school, one thing he did that was really amazing. A parent was a yoga instructor, and she volunteered to come in once every 2 weeks before school in the gym to lead yoga for whoever wanted
Oh,
to
neat.
participate. And so that was great for those who did. I am not a human pretzel. If I bent into those shapes, I would never be able to get out. But I know my cousin is a yoga instructor. It works for so many people. So if that's your calling,
Yep.
then that was a great way to. It was on a Friday, so it was great at the end of the week, and people were getting refreshed for the weekend and to make it through that last day, that last hurdle. So there's lots of
Mm-hmm.
different ways, but make those boundaries. Realize that school is not everything. There are only so many hours of the day, and you need to be away from school as much as you are at school. You can't do
Yep,
both and
that's right.
have a healthy balance. That balance is really difficult for us teachers because we are people pleasers, and we keep saying, but it's for the kids, but it's for the kids, but it's for the kids. But again, if you aren't whole yourself, you can't be there for the kids.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And finding things that you enjoy that will pull you out of that. Because just leaving, I mean, I've been working my whole career on trying to get closer and closer to my contract hours so that I can be balanced. But I'm also the person, like when you were saying about the Friday afternoon, I'm like, man, I love to work a good hour and a half on a Friday afternoon. Why? No line at the photocopier. I don't have to worry about any kind of traffic. Nobody interrupts me. I put on my like, you know, whatever hurts left brain, right brain, like brain music that's basically white noise. And I just go to town on a Friday night, and then Monday morning rolls around and like it's ready to go. And so
Yeah,
I enjoy that time as well. I found that it works for me.
and that works for you, and
However,
that's
you
amazing.
know, the
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and also I will say I'm a childless person. This year we have an exchange son from Kosovo, and he's here, and he's changed our schedule. But that it reminds me during my prep time, like, okay, go to the bathroom, refill your water, come on back, and let's like get through a to-do list here so that at the end of the day, I've got something that pulls me out of school. Find something that motivates you. If you like to dance, find a dance class. If you live in a rural area and you don't have, lots of things at your fingertips, like be creative about how your home feels to you, or you can find ways to be out of school. And then also I would say, like, whatever, I feel like we've hit this a few times just in different words, the routines. About 2 years ago, I finally decided that Fridays in my classroom was going to be makeup day and Duolingo day. So I wasn't teaching lessons on Friday outside of a regular, like, this is our class mantra that we say, this is the song, then we do a song, and then we move on with our like routine. Like I would still do that, but then it's like, okay, we're going to go to our, station work. This station of
Mhm.
kids is with me at the back table. And then the rest of you get your free reading book, get onto Duolingo. And, it helped so much. And nobody complained. The kids were happy with Duolingo. They were doing it at home. They were checking out books from my classroom library, which is another routine that I very, very strongly suggest. If you have any reading materials whatsoever, even if it's only one thing per kid or one thing per every two kids, get those reading materials in their hands and give them time, 5 to 10 minutes, to read it, and train them. Train them how to read silently. If they're verbal, like my middle schoolers, like they find a funny picture and immediately they're sharing with the person next to you. And so I was like, I can't just squish, 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 squish their energy, or I'm going to burn out their little chispa for reading. So I said, we're going to read. We read for 5 minutes silently. Then we do like a chat mat about their book. Then they turn and talk because it builds up, they want to share. And that has been a routine that I have established that's really good, not just for me, but for the kids. Like I take attendance quietly now with urban seventh graders. That has that's huge for me. It's such a small slice of wellness where it's like I can look at the seating chart, see whose seat's open, nobody's interrupting me. Also, no talking to Mrs. Vernon about can I fill in the blank during passing period. That I have a rule about that. Can I go get a drink? Don't ask. It's passing period. Just go do it. If you read the clock, be back on time. Good luck. And it doesn't have to be rude, but little things like that, because while I do think I'm pretty extroverted and social, I also only have so much in my cup. And answering the question and reading the clock for a kid and just asking them, oh, you have 90 seconds. Do you think you have enough time to go to the bathroom and wash your hands and be back? Like, such a waste of my social energy cup for the job that I have. And so I just kind of put some of those boundaries and routines into place as well. And yeah, there's tons of routines out there that you can do in the classroom. And Allison Weinhold is another one. Weinhold is another one that has tons of routines. So routines have saved me.
Absolutely. And I'll just touch on one thing. You said you do yours on Friday. I cannot live without a to-do list. Between my calendar and my to-do list, those are my two most used apps, because my to-do list keeps me honest. It tells me what I'm doing and it keeps nagging at me if it's not done. But I schedule my lesson plans for the next week on Thursday so that I get them all done on Thursday. If something comes up and I still got Friday to work on it, but then I know when that bell rings at 3:45 p.m. on Friday, because if I want to beat traffic, I need to leave right at 3:45, and I'm in the middle of light to moderate traffic, but I'll have to wait till like 7 to get away from traffic completely, and I'm not staying that long. So 3:45, I know I'm good because I did my lesson plans the day before. So I have them done. And so that's kind of how I do mine. And I do mine between my prep and my hour and a half before school starts. That's when I get my lesson plans done. But like I want to have it done for the next week so I'm not stressed what I'm doing on Monday. But I do it on Thursday because I know I'm completely spent on Friday. I just want to leave on Friday.
Yeah.
And by Thursday, it's not too early. I still know where we're probably going to end up on Friday, so I don't have to rewrite the plans. I mean, one school district made us write plans 2 weeks in advance. I'm like, how the heck can I do that? Because I don't know where my kids are going to be, and I know I have to keep rewriting them and have to resubmit them because they change because my kids got further than I thought, or they didn't get as far as I thought. But on a Thursday before Friday, I pretty much know where we're going to end up. So I can pretty much write my lesson plans for the following week, and it works pretty well. So that's what I do. We have gone over a little bit, but that's okay. I want to thank both of you for showing up today. I really appreciate it. This is a great episode, and I think it's a perfect time right before we do that final plunge before winter break. We've got 3 weeks before winter break comes when we go back. And luckily for us, we start over in January. We start a whole new semester with a whole new kids. So it's a complete refresh, restart at that time. So that's a perfect time. I just want to say thank you. Any final words that anybody want to say before we close up for today? Okay, great. So
Thanks
let's
for your
then.
time, Scott. This was
Yeah,
fun.
thank
Sorry,
you
Andy, go
guys.
Yeah,
ahead.
thanks for having the conversation. It's important, really important.
It absolutely is. So, um, thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. And of course, a huge shout out to our guests, Andy and Meg, for keeping it real and reminding us that yes, CI burnout is a thing. And no, you're not the only one who has considered teaching from under your desk. I know I have.
Yeah.
If you've got something useful, validating, or at least mildly entertaining out of this episode, make sure you hit subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with another teacher who might need the reminder that they're not alone in this circus we call teaching. And don't forget, you can watch us live on YouTube or catch the replay anytime on your favorite podcast app. So, all right, that's it for today. Ditch the drills, trust the process, and I'll see you next time on Comprehend This. Have a good one, everybody.